Hello and welcome into today's training camp practice report. No Zoe today on a Saturday, so we've got Evan Lazar from Patriots.com. I'm Alex Barth. After the Patriots' fourth training camp practice, we are still high above the practice fields here at Gillette Stadium, just slightly different spot. Again, weekend, everything's a little different, but we did watch practice. A lot more to watch than yesterday, Evan. Yesterday, if people don't remember, it was a pure walkthrough. Mike Vrabel described it as an install day, third down, red zone. Is it safe to make the assumption, take the leap, whatever you want to call it, that this was them testing at full speed what they installed yesterday?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. Today felt like the first out of all 4 days.
Yeah.
This felt like training camp. We had a lot of 11-on-11 drills, even a 7-on-7 period. The music was up, blaring during the offenses, pre-snap, getting game-like feel to it as well. So I felt like overall today was the most fun day of training camp for us because there's as much more to dissect, but also just the highest intensity period of practices as well for the Patriots.
Big picture, and we'll get more into the details kind of as we go through here, but after spending yesterday to slow it down and get everybody on the same page, you hope that you see the rewards of that right away and they come out and kind of hit the ground running today. Do you feel like today was them passing the test? Do you feel like today was what you expected after them spending yesterday on a full walkthrough?
I would say so because there was a good back and forth, and that's not something that we've always seen, frankly, especially over the last couple of years with the offense. The defense seems to control, especially these early practices, and maybe you'll see one or two moments from the offense that make you feel a little bit better, but most of the time it's the defense sort of dominating these practices. Today it felt like a lot more of a back and forth. Drake Maye's pass to Pop Douglas was obviously the highlight. I'm sure we'll get to that. But overall, passing the test, I think that there's still some things installing this system, especially defensively, where they're working on communication, assignments, things of that nature. Remember, all the guys that are here that are holdovers, they all played in the Belichick system from start to finish until this point, whether it was with Belichick himself or last year with Gerard Mayo. So for a lot of these guys, this is the first time they're playing in a different defense, players that were drafted by the Patriots the last couple of years or brought in by the Patriots the last couple of years. So I still think that's a little bit of a work in progress.
See, for me, I thought at least today, it felt like the defense, it wasn't perfect for the defense, but you get beat. It happens, right? You mentioned the Pop Douglas play. Those guys get paid too. You make a good play, they make a better play. I thought the offense was a little more hit and miss. There were high moments. So the Drake play you mentioned, which is probably the play at camp, they're running, I think it was just like a basic crossing slants pattern, something, and there's nothing there. It's covered. Drake Maye rolls out to his right. Pop Douglas sees him, breaks off his route near the sideline, gets completely vertical up the field along the sideline. Maye hits him on the run. He clears the defender, makes a catch for a touchdown. So you had moments like that. He had a couple other tight window throws, one to Pop Douglas, one to Hunter Henry. He also had a couple overthrows. Like that first period, he had Travion Henderson deep, missed him on an overthrow. Had Hunter Henry over the middle, missed him on an overthrow. So it still feels like maybe there's a little more work to do. Whatever those overthrows are, like to me, I usually chalk that up to timing, right? Timing and chemistry. Sure. So it felt more, the highs were great. The highs were awesome, but it wasn't as consistent as maybe the defense was.
Well, the glass half full thing to me on that is that, because I agree with you, I thought this was a less efficient day for Drake Maye, but it's kind of the perfect Drake Maye practice where you have those 5 highlight throws that if we could just bottle those up and put them on a highlight reel, all of us would go crazy seeing some of those passes. But then there are also some of those sprays or inaccuracies where he throws one low to Kayshon Boutte. He had Travion Henderson behind Christian Ellis on a wheel route, and they just missed. Like that thing to me is more about timing between a rookie running back and a quarterback that have just started playing together. But you had those inaccuracies, if you want to call them that. You also had the highs. And to me, it stems from the fact that they were pushing the ball down the field a little bit more today than what we saw in the first couple of days, especially that second practice where everything was short and underneath. And I think all the reports were that he was like 14 of 15 completions, but his ADOT was probably like 3 yards, right? So his average target depth wasn't as far downfield. When you want to push the ball down the field more like they did today, you're not going to complete every pass. That's just common sense. So I thought it was a little bit of both of maybe still working on just those little minutiae of timing, but also understanding that Well, when you throw a wheel route to Travion Henderson 25, 30 yards down the field, you're not going to complete every single one of those.
And I think that is a good point. I meant to mention that when I was, kind of introducing that this was not the check down day. This was not the take a profit day. And we had talked about that, like, all right, well, it's good to see he can do it, but we are going to want to see him push the ball down the field, and he did that today. Primary beneficiary today, though, was Pop Douglas. We mentioned the great play he makes on the, turning up the field, the scramble play. I think it was Kyle Williams after practice talking about it, called it fast break football. He had another really good catch on a back shoulder. It wasn't a fade route, but he kind of faded back to make the catch over Marcellus Dial through contact. That's not something that's usually in his bag. He was awesome. I go back to the spring when I was putting roster projection together. There were people that thought Pop Douglas might not make this team. He's probably been their best receiver through the start of camp, and I would say today weighs heavily. Today was the most involved day. I think you take more away from this practice than any practice to this point, and he was catching everything today. He was awesome.
This was one of his best practices I've ever seen him have with the Patriots. I mean, he was really in all ways, and I think the things that stands out to me the most about what he's doing, and you mentioned the Drake play, and that, look, we all got excited for that. It was awesome. No one's telling you not to like it. But at the same time, the catches through contact and some of the acrobatic catches that he's made, like going up above the rim and toe tapping on the sidelines and contorting his body, like that's not really his game. His body type doesn't necessarily lend itself to that either. So to see him doing those types of things has really stood out to me. And the other thing that's really stood out to me as well is how quickly he's grasped the minutiae of the McDaniels offense when it comes to the slot position. We know about the option routes. We know about settling in zones and being quarterback friendly against zone and breaking away against man and all the different things that they like to do from that position. And he's really done a nice job of picking that stuff up. And I think if you had any doubts about Pop Douglas coming into the year, and if he was a fit in that role in McDaniels' offense, it was probably the between the ears stuff and not necessarily the athleticism or the ability to separate. So the fact that he's picked up so quickly on that type of stuff is really promising as well. So him, Diggs, and then we'll see who the third receiver is or that primary X receiver, whether it's Booty or Kyle Williams can emerge. Javon Baker had a couple plays today. So that's really where that is at. But those two, Diggs and Douglas, are going nowhere.
I will say, and I say this noting that there's a ton of context that comes with it, and I almost just want to whisper it. Javon Baker's had a sneaky good start to camp here.
Today was a good day.
Well, he was getting open the previous couple days. It was against the threes, but you got to get open against the threes to earn the reps against the twos, so you can get open against the twos, to earn the reps against the ones, so you get open against the ones. So, he had his, I think today was the first time we've seen him on the field with Drake Maye in this camp, and he caught a deep ball for Maye, kind of a little stutter and go against Jalen Hawkins, and just blew right by him. And Drake Maye put it right on him. It was one of Maye's better throws today. So, long way to go for Javon Baker. Any concern about it? It did feel like there were more drops today than you'd like to see. Diggs had a couple. Henderson had one. There were a couple others I can't remember off the top of my head. Any concern about the drops today?
Not a huge concern. I thought Diggs actually caught that ball and then fumbled it after he
it was right on the line.
I don't know where they would have ruled that if he would have gotten the did he survive the ground, incompletion, did Dez catch it type of thing. But I don't know exactly where that was at. I wasn't as concerned because that's not been a theme of camp by any means, that they've been dropping a lot of passes, so maybe it was just a one-day thing. If there's anything to be concerned about, and I know it's a broken record, but today, again, I thought there was a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And there was times where, in particular, that worry me are the free runners. Like, it's one thing if you're missing and you're blocking your guys and you just whiff on a block, it happens.
Especially in a non-padded practice.
Right, you can live with those. But there was at least 2 or 3 times Robert Spillane came scot-free through the middle of the defense or the line of scrimmage unblocked. Keon White, I thought it was like a stunt or a twist up front. He came through unblocked on one. So those are the ones you gotta eliminate. Like, don't beat yourself with mental errors or assignment-based issues, because I don't know if they're gonna have great offensive line play consistently through the across the board. So if you can really be one unit though, and you can get that chemistry down, they'll be all right. But I still feel like through 4 practices, if I had to say where's my biggest worry, it's the offensive line.
I want to get to that in a second, but real quick, just to wrap up today's practice on the defense. Robert Spillane, I think you watch today's practice and you have an idea why so many people are so high on him and so focused on him as being an important player for them. He had a couple pass breakups. You really see him playing sideline to sideline. Today, I think, was a good, and it was good. It was a good crowd here, so a lot of people learned it. They were up on the ramps. Good crash course in how this new defense works and why that middle linebacker role is such a crucial position in this defense.
Yeah, and yesterday Marcus Jones called him the commander after practice, and he is the green dot wearer. He is the leader of this defense. We've seen a lot of communication stuff with Robert Spillane. Yesterday, off to the side with Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers, for example. A ton of communication, a really good communicator out there, made some plays today. I've said it before, I think Robert Spillane is a slept-on player in the league as a whole. Wasn't on a great Raiders team, made a lot of tackles on a team that did not make the playoffs, so I understand that. But Patriots fans, once they familiarize themselves with Robert Spillane, I think are going to really like him.
Finally, just looking ahead, off tomorrow, come back on Monday, full pads. That means the line. What are you looking for in particular? I'll just give mine real quick. I know we all want to see Will Campbell. I do too. But Jared Wilson, I think, started at center today, right? Got the first reps at center, so we haven't seen that. He's played left guard, he's played right guard. They want this kid in the lineup. I don't think they know where yet. I think that might come down to, I don't think Onwenu's job is in jeopardy, but Garrett Bradbury, Cole Strange, proving that they belong in that best five. But for a guy that didn't participate in the spring, to come in and have the kind of role he's had this quickly in camp, I think they want him in the lineup. Now, he has to prove he belongs in the lineup.
Sure.
And that's going to come in pads. So that's what I'm looking for. Offensive, defensive line, what are you looking for tomorrow when the pads come on?
Well, similar lines, just to piggyback off the Jared Wilson thing you said, though, I think the biggest thing with him is that he elevates the ceiling of the offensive line. If he's out there, I just feel like they have a little bit more ceiling or a little bit more upside as a group. Maybe that's just the unknown. It could be that simple, but I still feel that way. So if you look at it, really, especially if he plays guard, left guard in particular, they would have 4 new starters on the offensive line.
And 2 rookies next to each other.
And for a group that was pretty much across the board the worst offensive line in football last year, statistically with the metrics and all that stuff, 4 out of 5 new starters, with Mike Onwenu being the one holdover, is what you want. That's kind of what you should be doing when you had a year like last year for that offensive line. So that would be promising to me. Moses, Onwenu, Bradbury, Wilson, Campbell. That to me feels like a line that's building towards something, especially with those 2 rookies. So I'm looking there as well. But the other thing I would just say, with all this pressure that's been on the quarterback, which I think has existed there in team, is that a little bit credit to Christian Barmore, Milton Williams, Keon White, Harold Landry, which on paper is a really good group. That's a really good defensive line. So I'd like to see if they can maintain that, or maybe the offensive line punches back a little bit when the pads come on. But let's not lose sight of the fact that Patriots defensive line might just be legit. They might just have some horses up there.
I mean, you see the speed in that group. The speed is real. How does speed translate in pads, and can they stop the run?
Yeah.
We know they can get after the quarterback, but they're smaller than they were last year. They sacrifice size for speed. But this is a team that struggled to defend the run. We all remember the Jacksonville game last year, right? The Jaguars just
unfortunately
said, we're going to run the ball until you stop it, and they never stopped it. So it's going to be on this group to stop it. So big day coming on Monday. All of more coverage of today's practice and looking ahead on 98.5, thesportshub.com. Evan will have on patriots.com. And I'll be back with Zoe on Monday for the training camp practice report brought to you by Safety Insurance. If you missed it, or any of the other reports we've done throughout camp, subscribe to the Sports Hub YouTube page or check out the Patriots Hub podcast feed. Wherever you get your podcast, we post the audio version there as well. And myself and Matt Dolph will have a podcast coming later today looking more at the 4 days to start collectively. So that will be coming out later this afternoon. If you're watching this live, we appreciate it. If you're watching it later, we thank you for catching up. So for Evan Lazar, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you on Monday.